Hi, this is Michael Fish, and I'd like to talk about a book called The Ascent of Money, which was written by Niall Ferguson, who's a professor and a well-known British historian, a professor at Harvard University, and a research fellow at Oxford University, and a fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University, and basically a very well-known historian. This book, as the title suggests, and the reason it's being covered as part of the Saving and Investing series, is about the history of money and the history of finance. And it covers a lot of ground. In fact, some of the areas of the early parts of chapters cover periods of time before Christ, and it goes all the way in the current paperback edition to the subprime events of 2009. The book covers things from the Spanish conquest in Peru all the way to some of the issues surrounding Bear Stearns and some of the other investment banks that took place in 2008 and 2009. And that's a lot of ground to cover. Now, the book is logically structured into 6 chapters, and those 6 chapters are banks and the banking system, debt and bond markets, equities and stocks, insurance, real estate, and finally a chapter called Chimerica, which covers the unique union that's been established between China and the United States, which two nations that together have made up a half of the world's growth in the last 8 years, and basically have a union, as we know, that results from China's ability to produce goods at low costs and America's willingness to consume and take on government debt, in many cases, and government debt that's purchased to a large extent by foreign nations, including China and Japan. Now, the book touches on a large number of financial events that occurred during this period that I mentioned earlier, including the Argentine debt defaults, asset-backed securities, the British Empire, Enron, Great Depression, the IMF, some of the Inca plundering that took place during the Spanish conquest, the savings and loan crisis, the subprime crisis. Now, obviously, the book cannot cover every single event in over 2,000 years of history, but it covers a huge amount of ground, and in particular some of the main innovations that took place over this time period and some of the characters that have taken us from early lending and money to what we have today, which is a very developed financial system. And because it covers so much ground, and because it covers so many events, yet remains logically structured, and effectively in each of these chapters covers a timeline of events and a sequence of events with particular focus on very important events such as a debt default or a depression. It's a very entertaining book. Because the book is very logically structured, including chapters on banking and debt and stocks, all separate, it's very logical, and it's even possible and easy for a financial novice, I think, to follow the material, even though some of the areas touch on more complicated financial concepts. You know, as we know, there are providers of capital and users of capital. They have 2 ways of interacting, equity and debt being those 2 ways. Equity, which gets split into stocks as companies get larger, and the debt being split into bonds as the lending gets larger, either on the part of governments or companies. And the book actually to some extent follows this kind of a framework as well, in that it splits the sections into stocks, bonds, and as we said, real estate and insurance, and some of the main areas and arguably asset classes that exist today. The book is entertaining for anyone with an interest in finance or history, and even to augment one's knowledge on finance and look at things from another angle. As the quote goes, "Those who don't know history are destined to repeat it." And in many ways, this book provides a lot of color on some of the incredible things that have happened in the world of finance over the last 2,000 years, or over the evolution of finance. One of the interesting things mentioned is that the average Wall Street CEO's career is just over 25 years. For many of us, our financial history and the intensity of our focus on finance would be much more limited than that of a Wall Street CEO. And it really makes a case to some extent for having some awareness of financial history, and certainly some of the bubbles that have taken place and some of the innovations even that are very interesting and insightful into how we came to have the financial system that we all hopefully benefit to some extent from today. It's a very interesting book, a lot of facts, and things covered from interesting angles. A very quick read and very smooth flowing. It's not what one might expect from a history book, arduous facts upon arduous facts. It's based on a TV series, and it's easy to follow and a good book, interesting insight to saving and investing concepts from another angle, i.e. in particular a historical angle.